Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. So be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff. Evening all, how are we? Welcome to another live stream. You must be, I think this is 3 in a row this week, isn't it? Every night. It's Charlie Landon here. This is Moving Home with Charlie, where I share 25 years of knowledge and experience from behind the scenes of the moving industry as a supplier of technology and marketing services to the moving industry. And before that, 5 years in the city as a registered derivatives broker. And I bring that combined magic to the housing market to try and bring you some cold, hard truth. And this evening, I've been a bit distracted by other topics in the last week or two, perhaps. I want to get back to your moving questions. But, Nick Jones, we're all doomed. I can't tell if you're joking or not. Good evening, Adam KO007A on Twitch. Oh, look at that. We've got a Twitch person commenting. Hi there. And Roni Burmick says, good evening, Charlie. What a spring budget we have. What do you think about it? I'm not going to spend too long on the spring budget, but I am going to play you this one short video clip from a Labour MP being interviewed on Sky News about the budget, which I think is remarkable. So let me just play this. And let's just all have a listen and think to Clive Lewis, the Labour MP Clive Lewis. I would love to know what you think about this.
14 years since the last Labour government. It's a long time in opposition. Has this Labour government been a disappointment?
I think some of us all kind of already knew that there were some problems in terms of how the lack of a plan and an ideology behind it, a lack of a strategy, I think, was something some of us were worried about. But they won a massive majority, a massive mandate, and you have to give people a chance. And I think we're at the point now where people can see that this isn't what we expected, isn't what a lot of the public expected, a lot of the MPs expected. In that sense, it is a disappointment. The question now is, do we have the strength and the ability to change tack and do something with 4 years ahead of us where we can bring the British public with us? Because, you know, tackling vested interests, and that's what we're talking about here. People who have done very well in the sixth richest economy, very wealthy, one of the most unequal economies in the Western world, are not going to roll over without a fight. But you're going to have to bring the British public with you and say to them, there are choices before us. There's going to be more austerity. You know, public services are going to be a problem. You know, how are we going to reach 3% of defence spending, the pledge that Keir Starmer given? Where's that going to come from? And I think we have to look at alternatives and an alternative way of running the economy and who it works for. And that's what's before us. And if Keir and Rachel and the leadership team can do that, they've got a fighting chance. If they can't, I'm struggling, as I imagine many people are, to see how we're going to weather these next 4 years and go into an election on the mandate that we have made your lives better. I'm struggling to see that at the moment.
Wow. I don't know about you. I think that was pretty seismic to have that reaction to the Labour government's spring statement from a Labour MP, basically saying, unless they can turn it round, there's no way we're winning the next election. I saw a couple of other Labour MPs saying similar things, going the way they're heaping the welfare cuts, basically. Cut welfare, increase government spending. And then the other thing that I saw was this. So the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, which is the organization that puts out official forecasts, and it's independent from government. And I won't go into too much detail, but there's one thing that's really important here, because it's what mortgage rates are quite closely linked to. And it's also worth repeating here, and this can go either way for whoever you are, that the OBR's forecasts have never been right. Never, not once in their 10 or 11 years of existence have they ever got it right. Nevertheless, it's what the government and the budget are held against and are budgeted against. But look at this. Look at this. This is the PDF of the OBR's 180-page report that came out today. And if you can see that graph clearly enough, that is the 10-year gilt yield forecast, right? And I hope you can see that. I put it as large as I can on the screen for you there. So the yellow line was the OBR's forecast from October last year of what the 10-year gilt yield, which is effectively government borrowing interest rate, it's kind of linked to that, is going to what they forecast it to be. And today they've issued their revised, updated forecast. And you can see two things have happened, right, to that dark blue line above the yellow line. First of all, it's jumped up by about 0.5%. And secondly, the forecast is that it just continues to go up and up and up all the way to 2029. So the OBR and the government are forecasting that gilt yields are going to go higher and higher and end up above 5%. And for comparison purposes, for people who don't really pay too close attention to what this means, during the Liz Truss mini budget meltdown, at their peak, they got to 4.6%. Well, we're above that today, 4.7% after Rachel Reeves' spring statement. And the OBR's forecasting them to just go up, up and up and up. Oh, that looked like a... God, I'm going to be done putting a Nazi salute any minute. So what does this mean for the housing market? And I am here to take questions, right? It is a live Q&A. First and foremost, this is a live Q&A. So give me your questions about anything to do with the housing market and moving home insofar as the spring statement is concerned as well. It doesn't have to be with that. It can be anything else. Oh, there's a good question. I'll pin some of these and make sure I get to them all. Oh, some funny comments in here. David says, I spent the day agreeing with Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell and Mel Stride. Never thought I would. What do we got here? Yeah. Emma Metcalf, more austerity. Social contract torn up by Labour. They are more like the Tories, so shameful. That's how a lot of people are feeling, quite understandably. They aren't really Labour. It's almost like the Labour government has been hijacked by globalists in the same way that the Tories were. Right? And it's why people call them the uni party. And it's why people like me gave the warning that this party has no real leadership. They are puppets. They are literally globalist puppets like the Tory party, which is why they are raising their money on spending on defence and cutting welfare, apparently for the most vulnerable. I mean, don't get me wrong, welfare needs reform. There's no doubt it needs reform. There's a lot of money being wasted on that. I think I heard that 20% of all new cars are now Motability. Amazing. Naida Asfar says, I don't understand people are so brainwashed and still buying. Yeah. Jay says 0.6% rise in yields wipes out Reeves headroom. So again, for the uninitiated, and this is not a precisely accurate statement, but roughly speaking, gilt yields are a better indicator of what mortgage rates are going to do than the Bank of England base rate is, as evidenced in the last 12 months by the fact that the Bank of England has actually cut the base rate, I think 3 times now, and mortgage rates are actually higher than they were before they cut them, which has messed with a lot of people's brains. Yeah. So I just picking up some of your questions. I just want to catch your questions and start answering them. I don't do anyone else. I only do me. Yeah, Reinhard Spies says, I'd argue that based on what we've seen since the general election, they're worse than the Tory party. Oh my God, fantastic. Somebody called Nothing on YouTube says, after a long 6 months, finally complete on my first home tomorrow. Amazing news. Congratulations. And Carlos asks, what does this mean for mortgage rates? What does this news mean for mortgage rates and house prices? Okay. Permit me a slurp of my tea. And I am just tagging your questions as they come in, and I will get to as many of them as they can. So what it means for mortgage rates is that there's really very little chance of them coming down anytime soon. In fact, they're more likely to go up. Mortgage rates are more likely to go up. So that suggests that there's no point waiting for interest rates to come down if you're buying, if that is what happens. What does it mean for house prices? Right. Well, the things that affect house prices the most are real wage growth, interest rates, and total mortgage lending. And of course, jobs, the economy, right? So the economy, I mean, we've been in a per person, per capita GDP depression or recession for 5 years now, right? GDP per head is lower now than it was in 2019, right? Now, everyone feels that, don't they? Like no one goes, oh, that doesn't sound right. I'm feeling much better off and flush and prosperous. No. The employer's national insurance tax increase comes into effect on Tuesday next week, on the 1st of April, along with a lot of other tax rises. The biggest one affecting the housing market, of course, is the stamp duty increase. And it's going to affect all transactions except for those below £125,000, which doesn't make any sense. And my position has always been that stamp duty on homes should be scrapped completely, at least on homes, and actually on the whole market, but certainly at least on homes. So when you move out of your first home and into your second home, or out of your second into your third, or you're downsizing from a big family house into a smaller house for retirement, you should never, ever, ever have to pay stamp duty for those moves, because it's just preventing people from moving and it's stopping houses from being freed up. It's a really stupid tax, stamp duty on home moving. And because that is going up on Tuesday next week, for anyone who hasn't completed, not exchanged, you need to have completed on the 31st, which is Monday, I believe, 31st of March, if you are to avoid the rise in stamp duty. The first-time buyer threshold, so first-time buyers only, is coming down from 425,000 to 300,000. That's a big come down, right? And if you're a second-time buyer or more, then it's down to 125,000. And all of the other thresholds are going up, and the rate's going up. So it's just going up across the board, right? That is going to hurt activity and put downward pressure on prices, because it's going to be costing buyers. Buyers are going to have to find a lot more money to move after the 1st of April than they have done up until now. And finding more money is the thing that everyone's struggling with now. So that's going to have that impact on the market and on prices. Then you've got likely rising mortgage rates, and you've got likely rising employment on the back of the national insurance increase. So there really aren't any obvious signs. And even Money Week put out an article yesterday saying that the days of, what was it? I've actually got, I'll put it here. I'll put it on the screen. Just for a second, let me share this article with you, because This is an article on Money Week, right? The personal finance website. Will house prices stagnate? Is the long-term outlook for the housing market is poor, says Max King. And down at the bottom, he makes this very salient observation, which is perhaps people will learn that a residential property is a place to live in for a long period of time rather than an investment. There'll always be bargains based on quality, mispricings, and location, but the days when a rising market would bail you out from overpaying are surely over. Yep. I think, right, I've been saying since 2022 that I expected house prices to slide. They have been sliding at different rates in different regions and different property types, but overall they've been sliding. Some areas, first-time buyer type properties have gone up in price over that time in certain pockets. So they haven't been coming down everywhere, but overall they've been sliding. And I think that slide is going to steepen this year and into next year, 2026. So we've got 2 more years of sliding house prices in general, with regional exceptions somewhere. But overall, I think the flats market is already dead in a lot of places, really struggling. And that's just going to get harder. No, Nick Jones, if you put your house on the market now, you will not avoid the stamp duty increase. I don't know. I'm sorry, that might be a serious question. I thought it was kind of a joke question. Like, can I sell my house in 4 days? No, it doesn't matter when you put your house on the market. It only matters when you complete the transaction. That's Nick Jones' question there. Right, let me start going through some of your questions and actually answer some of your questions here. It would be helpful if you could just type the word question at the beginning of your comment, because I'm scrolling through on my own. It helps me pick out questions from just all the rest of your comments and infighting and trolling each other and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Well, just asks us, do we think deep down they know we are screwed? Or do we think they genuinely believe their own lies and fiction? That's a good question. That's a really good question, because it could be either, couldn't it? Do they actually think everything's okay? Because you've got to remember this, right? Almost everything that Starmer and Reeves say publicly, and Rayner and everyone else for that matter, is scripted for them by their spin doctors. They're like kind of zombie robots who just say what they're programmed to say. And you can see that in almost every interview they do. And the last government weren't any better, right? It's just, must be on message, must repeat the mantra, just repeat the mantra, repeat the phrase, don't answer the question. And that suggests to me that they don't even know what they think. They just say what they're told to say because there are no actual leaders there. Matt says, the OBR predict house prices up 15% by 2029. Well, that's pretty much the death knell for house prices then, because the OBR never gets it right. Okay, so that's 4 years from now. That's 15%. So that's like 3 and a bit% a year. Do I agree with it? Nope, I don't. Now, again, if they're saying that's an overall generalization, that's never a reflection of what's actually happening anyway. I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence about what happens to house prices 3 years from now and onwards, right? So from 2028, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't have a view on what the market's going to be like then, and what would have happened or not happened. I just think that the next couple of years, and in fact, the spring statement today confirms this for me, are just going to get bleaker, and we're all going to get more skint, and it's going to get worse for almost everybody, and it's going to be horrible and bleak. And I haven't had this feeling of just. I mean, I'm in London at the moment, and been out and about in London on a sunny day. It's busy, people are out there, and you might not notice that anything's wrong, but based on the messages that I get and the things that I see, I'm sensing struggle, a lot of struggle for a lot of people. And so I think that well, let's come on to the next questions, because we cover what I was going to say. Graham Lyson says, would scrapping stamp duty ultimately lead to an increase in deposits and therefore overall house prices? No. When they do temporary stamp duty scrappage or suspension, or a stamp duty holiday, or a stamp duty a temporary threshold raise, it creates a temporary false market every single time. But if it's a permanent removal, and everybody knows that, what it does is it leads to more people being able to move, first and foremost. Might there be a tiny noticeable change, perhaps where buyers are most deposit sensitive? So at first time buyer level, could it have a small effect on house price? Might house prices go up a tiny bit if stamp duty was scrapped at the first time buyer level? Perhaps. And stamp duty higher up the market gets really quite big. But at the moment, the rich aren't buying the houses. The rich have been selling the houses for some time. I mean, if you want proof of that, in central London, in the ultra-rich, ultra-prime market is down 15 or 20%, right? Kensington and Chelsea, the average transaction price in Kensington and Chelsea is down over 30% from the peak of 2022, right? The rich aren't buying, they are selling. And there's more unsold property than at any other time for the last 10 years. So honestly, the rich aren't buying anything at the moment. They're mostly selling and causing prices at the higher end to come down, generally speaking. So, no, I don't think stamp duty would make any noticeable difference, because most of people's buying power at the first time buyer level comes from their mortgage, not from their deposit. So the percentage difference in what they can pay is relatively small based on stamp duty. Kyala on X says, stamp duty increase is so lame, literally wiping out our Lisa first-time buyer bonus. Yep. Bad times. Bad times. Wow, okay, so Frizzle Frazzle says, yeah, I walk through Soho to work now in the morning. And if I compare the size of deliveries to bars, etc. now to when I was last working here pre-pandemic, it's just a fraction. Denny Boom Bat says, rich people are leaving, that's why. No, Welsh Recon, they are not scrapping the first-time buyer stamp duty relief. Forgive me, I'm really thirsty tonight. And now listen, so I've been spending time today with an agent that I'm working with, who's asked me for help because they're struggling to compete against the big overvaluing agents. And they reconfirmed to me today, this is the flats market is just dead for them, to the point where they don't even really want to take flats on to sell because there's just so little interest in flats in that particular part of Southwest London. And the other thing that was interesting I noticed about it is that a lot of the buyers and sellers that they're dealing with are only buying and selling if they can also sell or buy. So the sellers want to be able to buy somewhere and the buyers need to be able to sell. And so it was really interesting because they're basically working on putting a lot of chains together. And the biggest challenge to those chains being put together is actually sellers changing their mind after getting great offers. It's honestly how they do that job when they can end up losing lots of money by not being paid. Kyala asks a question. Would the stamp duty increase deter buyers enough to reduce asking prices on properties under $500,000 to a point in which they cancel each other out? Well, because stamp duty is not part of your deposit, but it is money that must be raised and you can't borrow it. You can't get it on your mortgage. It is purely a transactional cost. It's not part of the purchase price. And so now that you're going to have to, on average, first-time buyers are going to have to find $6,000 more cash up front on average, right? So that will vary, but that's effectively going to tighten deposits and make loan to value targets harder to reach for borrowers. It just doesn't help anything. And the effect it has on prices is downwards. But not in a useful way, if you see what I mean, because you've still got this. It's just like it's a moving fee. It's a buying tax. You can't borrow it to pay for your mortgage, that kind of stuff. Looking for more questions. Where are the stats rich people leaving the UK? They are there. Go and look it up. If anyone else can find it. The official stats, 10,800. So it's almost 1,000 millionaires leaving per month, which is a record. I think it's the highest of any country in the world as a proportion of population, and higher than about 5 other big countries put together. So there is officially a mass exodus of millionaires leaving the country at the moment. I haven't got the link right here. Go and look it up. You'll find it. And that's a problem, because they are taking with them a disproportionately larger portion of taxes being paid are leaving with them, actually making it worse for everybody. It does actually happen. It's not like one of those weird arguments that people just say happens. It genuinely does happen, and it's already happening, and it's going to get worse as well. No, I'm not a non-dom tax person. Nick Jones says, do you think house prices nominally will continue to go down for a few more years? Pretty much throughout the country, semi-detached and terraced houses are holding up better than both flats and detached houses. That's a reasonably consistent generalization around the country. It's not true everywhere. It's not true everywhere. Yes, I'm expecting house prices to continue to slide for a few more years. I think the possibility of it getting much worse later this year is pretty significant. Yeah. Do you get the feeling, Kim Thomas says it can cause a brain drain too if it continues? I kind of feel like the brain drain might have already happened, especially at government level. I'm serious. These aren't personal comments. You look at the caliber of MPs standing up and speaking in the Houses of Parliament and asking questions. And compared to going back 10, 20 years, some of them struggle to string a sentence together. Genuinely. Kyala again asks, what do I think of Sasha's take on how to fix the economy? I thought it was overall, I didn't agree with 100% of it. Some curious bits in it. Overall, I thought it was brilliant. And the especially good part was his idea about launch pads zones to replace enterprise zones, where they're close to universities and where students can get special dispensation and tax relief for working or starting businesses or renting premises and this kind of stuff. Very, very, very clever, his launchpad idea, his M and his U launchpad idea for universities and for manufacturing areas. And he even listed the exact cities that he would put them in. It's very cool. He's got big changes for council for corporation tax, and big changes for VAT and alcohol duties. It's a full budget. Sasha, it's a full budget, and I thought it was brilliant, genuinely brilliant. Dr. Benny Boom Bat says, are you starting to feel like you can't really own a property in the UK? The tax is like a rent, and if you want to build a conservatory, you have to apply to the state. Yeah, it definitely feels like we're moving away from ownership, doesn't it? Because ownership's getting harder. You've got to borrow. You've now, in order to be able to afford something now, you've got to borrow into your retirement. So you've got no chance to save for retirement if you're still paying off your mortgage into retirement. That's the other comment I'm going to say. So this person's reminding me of this. LB on X says, I'm finding the Cornwall market frustrating as nearly everything is overpriced. Market years and often barely reduced, on the market for years and often barely reduced over that time. It's bonkers. Now look, one of the things that a lot of sellers are not factoring in, that buyers, especially of houses, are thinking. Everyone looking at a property they're thinking of buying that isn't a brand new build is also factoring in their budget for upgrades, improvements, renovation, refurbishment, redecorating, fixing, whatever it might be. And the costs of refurbishment and maintenance of property, just due to inflation, are about 50% more than they were a few years ago. Literally 50% more. So every buyer, and this is the same, right? And sellers selling houses have very short memories from when they were buying, right? When you're buying, you're thinking, what's it going to cost me to change this and to fix that and to upgrade that and to repair that thing? And you go get quotes for it. And the quotes that you get now are 50% more than the equivalent quote from a few years ago. And so that is being factored into buyers' offers. And sellers are just through optimism bias, are just not factoring that in. And so there's this big standoff. And I, on a daily basis, am witnessing again and again this absolute cold, hard delusion from some sellers, not all of them, some of them. And when I say cold, hard delusion, I mean, they're like, no, we are definitely not being unrealistic about our price. We know this is what our house is worth. We know this is what our house is worth, right? We're not being over optimistic. We've definitely been realistic. And we just can't sell it. And there's no interest and there's no one coming around to buy it. We don't understand. But it's definitely worth this. And to anyone thinking that, any seller thinking that, I would say, what have you seen to make you think the market for your property is that price? What have you seen to make you think that? Because what you'll find is that actually there isn't anything that supports it. If you're on the market and you're getting no viewings, your price is too high. There might be other problems too, like problems of the property or problems of the marketing, but one of the problems will definitely be the price is too high. Because no matter how bad the economy is, buyers never stop buying. They never stop buying. People still keep being born, getting married, getting divorced, having kids and dying. That doesn't stop for the economy. Okay, so it's just the price. And if you get the price right, you will get a rush of buyers. The problem is nobody wants to accept how much the market has already come down. Yes, and H. It's extraordinary. Our human powers of self-delusion and convincing ourselves we're right, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that we're wrong. A couple of great questions coming in. I will get to them. Yeah, there's some really good comments here worth bringing up. I will. Hang on a second. Yeah. Here we go. Let's get some of these questions in. Right. Great question. HJ on X says, Charlie, how do I price my house correctly? Now, I don't know whether I don't know where you are in the country, but generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, you're not going to like this. You're not going to like it. The sellers are not going to like this. You need to go and find, whether it's by looking online, which is the weakest way to do this, or by talking to agents and getting actual comparables. And you need, if you do, let's just say you can only look online and you won't get the pricing right. You need to completely ignore, and I really mean just ignore, don't even take any notice of the asking, and this is impossible because you will, the asking prices of the homes most comparable to yours, right? So the most comparable homes as close to yours. And I've got an anecdote to explain today because it's just fascinating how sellers think to convince themselves that it's worth more than they are, right? Look for the prices, the displayed asking prices of properties that are showing as sold, showing as under offer, sold subject to contract, that kind of thing, and take 10% off that if it's an identical house to yours. At least 10% off that. That is how I, roughly speaking, now you can do a lot more things to refine it. Okay, so if there is a house very like yours in the same street that's sold recently and you know the exact price it's sold for, that's a very compelling pricing point. But do not make the mistake a lot of sellers make thinking, well, I know that buyers are just going to offer under asking, so shouldn't we add on top of what we think it's worth so that we get offers at where we want to get? That is a mistake because you get fewer offers, because you get fewer inquiries, because you priced it too high to begin with. The way to get the highest offer is to get the most people through the door to look at it. And that gets you the most buyers. I don't know if that's helped you, HJ. I hope it has, right? But that's how to price it. But this is the best way is to make sure you get an agent that really prices it correctly. Okay. Kim Thomas says a lot of properties haven't been upgraded for decades. That's true. And this is where sellers are going wrong, right? They think, well, what we paid for it plus X% because that's what the market's done. And you're not factoring in the wear and tear depreciation on your home. So these are first-hand conversations with an agent today who've just been speaking to various clients. And there are two different ones. One of them was, yes, I understand the process. We've priced it keenly. We've had lots of viewings and we've had lots of offers. So I know that that's the market. But I just want to know whether there's any other way we could maybe come back to the market and maybe get more. This property's had 30 viewings in 3 weeks, 7 offers. Okay. And one of the married couple selling it is going, but maybe we could get more. I mean, you literally, that's it. It doesn't get any better than that. You've got all these proceedable buyers bidding against each other. That's the market for your home. And compared with local prices, it was already way better than the one down the road that sold, etc., even though it's smaller and stuff like that. So this is a point where even when a seller is confronted with the cold, hard, actual market for their property, somehow they're like, And by the way, the offers that we're getting were 8% above the asking price that the agent launched it at. Launched it at a very attractive price, loads of interest. This is a 7-figure property, by the way, right? Not a cheap one with lots of first-time buyers, a large, detached family home with a garden in Southwest London. Loads of buyers. And the seller's like, yeah, I totally bought the process. Like, I get that we've now got the market, but do you think if we waited, maybe the spring bounce? But I'm like, what? Take the offer. Because if you don't take the offer in that time, at that point, the buyers will get bored with you waiting to make up your mind. And a lot of buyers are going, I get questions from buyers all the time going, why aren't we getting an answer on our offer? And often it's because sellers are doing this, going, yeah. It's a good offer. Yeah, I know. We've had loads of viewings and we've had loads of offers. It's really, really good. But I'm just wondering if, maybe we take it off and put it back on in the spring. Maybe we'll get more. Like, no. You just make yourself look like a piss taker and scare all the buyers off who think you're not serious about selling. Anyway. Graham Lysett. Charlie, what's your view on council tax premiums on second homes? Do you feel it will make any difference to the availability of housing where the scheme is aimed at? Well, it already has. So there are some areas, especially this one in Wales, where it's resulted in a whole load of second homes coming back to the market. The problem is they're not suitable for first-time buyers and they're not selling. So the prices are falling in those places and those people can't sell those homes, those holiday homes. And the holiday market, the holiday lettings market is not what it was. And now they've got a bigger council tax, and those people, some of them are leveraged and have buy-to-let, holiday-let mortgages on them. and now their council tax is doubled and they can't sell. So it is making a difference. I don't know if it's making the difference that was hoped for in some areas. So Ant H has got a story to tell us. Saying, a friend said the other day, offers are all bonkers. I've already priced it for the work that's needed. He then said, if it doesn't sell, I'll do the work myself and just price it even higher. See, these are examples of utter delusion, and we all have friends who do this, don't we? John Snow, I just viewed a £500,000 property, but it needed £100,000 to do it up. The estate agent thought I was nuts. Here we are, another classic case of basically 20% out, right? Because the seller and the agent haven't priced in the fact that it's going to cost £100,000 now, not maybe 60,000 as it was a few years ago to do that work, or 50,000. It's a lot more now. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Looking for questions, just scrolling through. Kyla says, this is a good and topical question. With your take on the economic outlook for the next 4 years, would you rather stay in rented and invest your large 15% deposit in savings and stocks and shares, or buy a house without overpaying with a 15% deposit on a 30-year mortgage? Okay, so my answer to that question is, if it was me, okay, you say stay in rented, so I'm assuming that you're in rented now. And where you are in rented, you've been able to save up your deposit. If I wasn't happy where I was living, I would continue to look. I would be out there viewing. And I would be cherry picking the properties that have been sitting on the market for the longest time of all, and ringing up the agent and go, look, you've had this property on the books for ages. Is the seller going to be open to a significant reduction on that price? Because if so, I'll come and have a look. And 4 out of 5 will go, no, they don't want a big reduction. And often you'll get the agent going, yeah, actually, yeah, that's worth it. Let me talk to the seller. Let's see if we can do a viewing. They might ask you for a number. Say, look, until I've seen it, there's no point giving you a number. Can I see it? Can I see it? Yes or no? Do that. You might have to go and kiss some frogs. But that's how you end up in a position where you're the only person who's looked at that house, and you're proceedable. You're an unencumbered buyer. You don't have something to sell. You can move quickly. If you get your offer together right, those are the scenarios where you can end up going, actually, this is such a lovely house, and at that price, I'm very happy to buy it with a 30-year mortgage. Does that make sense? So the answer to the question is, it depends on the individual property and the price that you get accepted. Winston Fahrenheit says, talk about deluded sellers. I might be a deluded buyer. Yes, deluded buyers also exist. £300,000 in an ISA, £120,000 a year salary, renting. Refuse to pay the stupid prices for houses, but I am a 50-year-old fart. Well, I'm a 52-year-old fart. So you're a whippersnapper compared to me. It's true that there are buyers out there who are too unrealistic. Conversely, also too unrealistic. It's a balancing act. There are buyers out there who are going around viewing properties where they're being so far off the mark that they're not getting taken seriously. You've got to get the balance right. And if you do, then you might get an offer accepted on a place you want to live in. Next question. Mike 13 says, isn't the thing to do as a seller to look at the local market and judge realistically, would you buy it if you were a buyer? Well, if you're capable of doing that when you're wearing your seller's glasses, that is a good idea, provided you can actually be realistic. That's the problem, is a lot of sellers think they're being realistic when they're not. And yes, Kim Thomas, there are 1.5 million officially long-term empty vacant homes in the UK. That's true. And a well thought through tax that didn't hit people unfairly for the wrong reasons, but actually got the right properties back into the market would help massively release a lot of properties back into the market, either to be rented or to be bought. Or the owners of those properties can just pay the tax, pay an increased tax, an empty homes tax. I'm saying, like, if you want to really fix housing poverty quickly, taxing the rich, fine, do a wealth tax. That's not going to help people in housing poverty now, and not for 5 to 10 years, even if it worked, which it wouldn't. I'm not saying don't put a wealth tax on. I don't really care about putting a wealth tax on. Most probably, could the wealthy afford a bit more money? Yes. Is it going to make a difference to the vast numbers of people on lower and middle incomes? No, you won't see it. You won't notice a bit of that. You want to make a difference to housing poverty, apply a stiff empty homes tax and bring that 1.5 million properties back to the market. Whereas, like, either you pay this empty homes tax, which is money going to your council, which helps out, or you put it on the market to rent it out. Fine, you own it, you get a rental income, or you sell it. But because we are a country with a housing crisis, and there's no dispute about that, you can't just sit there with your empty home for years and years and years, not using it, when your local council is suffering. And this could be done at a local level. You could let councils make up their own. It could be applied, not nationally, it could be applied council by council as they see fit. Nick Jones says a lot of empty homes are former mining industrial towns where there are no jobs. That's true. And so in those places where there's actually no demand for homes, the councils aren't going to need, the councils there won't be short on homes. And so they wouldn't want to apply an empty homes tax in that scenario. Thomas Moran says, I've been looking for houses in Norfolk for 5 years. Most houses in our budget are being sold at auction. Can you not? Does that mean you can't buy them? Over 55s properties are very overpriced houses. Any ideas on what we could do? I mean, honestly, other than making certain you've got all of your ducks in a row, everything lined up and ready, your mortgage offer in principle, your proof of deposit fund, your conveyance lined up, your offer to buy a search pack, immediately buy one. Have those things so that when you make an offer, it's a very, very attractive offer, even if the price is disappointing for the seller. I know the Norfolk housing market's been, it's one of the areas where prices have been coming down overall. I don't know if in particular your particular type of property that's been happening. But if most of them are going to auction, that says to me that there should be houses within your budget before they go to auction that are on the market. I mean, Thomas, can you tell me, like, give me an idea in the last 3 months? So in this year so far, since Christmas, how many have you viewed? Excuse me. Stan Reynolds says, I take your points about pricing mid and getting lots of interest and eventually decent offers, but shouldn't agents know what this sweet price is every time? They mostly do know, but they go into every seller's house thinking that the seller has an overinflated expectation. And if they go underneath it, the seller will want to use them. And so most agents will go in and tell you a price that they know is too high. And they won't be honest with you for fear of being dismissed as a potential agent to sell your house. But good agents will know that sweet spot. And that's why you've got to choose your agent like your future depends on it. Because if your future depends on moving house, then your future does depend on which agent you choose. And this reminds me of something. I had a meeting yesterday with arguably the single most influential character and individual in the property market of the last 30 years. Just me and him. And he said something to me that really quite shocked me and made me realize that a lot of agents genuinely think that overvaluing is more the fault of sellers with unrealistic expectations, saying, I know what I want from a house and I want this much. If you can't get me this much, then jog on. His view was, and he's arguably more experienced than anyone else I've ever met, that he was from the north. That was his real sort of stomping ground. That overvaluing and overpricing was more down to sellers than agents. One of the most experienced people in the industry, very, very famous in the industry. And it was fascinating to hear him think that overpricing was more down to sellers than agents. I disagree with him. But there we are. Nick Jones says, are you worried that the government's reliance on future GDP growth to be on building 1.5 million homes in 5 years' time? Yeah. This government is clutching at straws. It's going really badly wrong for this government. I mean, they are clinging on by their fingernails. Growth is just non-existent and getting worse. They are fiddling the figures to make it look like it's just about okay. And the OBR has said that the headroom is still exactly 9.9 billion, and it'll be 9.9 billion again in a few years' time. It's all so orchestrated and manipulated and tweaked and just got to make it look like it's holding together. And the fact that their future GDP growth is relying on house building, when not a single government in the last 30 years has been able to meet its house building targets, says everything you need to know. It's just going to be absolute car wreck, the economy. And the reason that they won't build that many homes is not because the planning permission is being withheld. That definitely makes it worse, makes it harder, and it's annoying. And there are house builders that want to build in areas they can't because of NIMBYism and that kind of stuff. But actually, the reason house builders aren't building more and won't build more is because people aren't buying them. There's a lot of unsold property. There are a lot of unsold new builds. There's that big new build estate in Kent that went bust with hundreds of unfinished homes just sitting there now. There's nobody buying them, and that's why the government they say mandatory targets. They're not mandatory. That's an outright lie. They aren't going around to Bovis Homes and saying you will build 200,000 homes, and Bovis going, yes, madam, okay, of course we will. That's just not happening. It's just not happening. They can't mandate home building unless they pay for it themselves. And that ridiculous announcement yesterday of 2 billion. I mean, to put this into context, right? We are announcing the biggest social house building program in a generation, and it's £2 billion, and it's going to be up to 18,000 homes. Just the interest on our debt payments is over £100 billion a year. Interest, not even the repayment. That's just the interest on the repayments, right? The net debt interest is over £100 billion. 2 billion is nothing. It's absolutely nothing. It doesn't touch the sides. Patricia makes an observation saying many of these empty homes owe the councils thousands in unpaid tax. Yep. David says, if we did make houses cheaper, what about the negative equity that many people would have? Well, first of all, they'd have to be at least 5% cheaper for everyone who still had 95% of their mortgage not paid off, 90% their whole mortgage. So for negative equity to become a significant problem, and it has done, and it is for some people, house prices need to come down like 10-15%, which is entirely possible. Not all of them will, some of them will, and over time a lot of them will. But because it's over time, if you're paying down your mortgage, your exposure to negative equity is getting a bit less each month as well. So if your house value is coming down at the same speed as your capital repayment element of your mortgage repayment, you're just kind of you're avoiding negative equity. Does that make sense? Hope so. Oh, Roni, I don't know what mortgage rates can be like 5 to 10 years from now. No idea, I'm afraid. Around 30% of empty homes are due to probate delays, hardly the fault of the seller, it's the legal system. Okay, so 30% of 1.5 million is 450,000. I can tell you that there are not 450,000 probate delays causing long-term empty homes. Okay, so I put a link to this on my post on X earlier. These are not homes that have been empty because someone's just died and they're trying to sell it and it's probate holding out. And obviously, if a house is going through probate, it would be exempt from an empty homes tax, obvious reasons, right? So I agree that if a home is going through probate, that wouldn't be taxable. But if probate's been completed and it's still just left there for ages empty after that, then it should be taxed. Thank you, Winston. Pair character punching the air with fist and bump written on his knuckles. Nick Jones has another question saying, how's your seller's price index going? I mean, we need something like that, produce some land registry. And yeah, so it's built. The best agent public house price index is built. The challenge we have now is getting a meaningful volume of exchange prices being reported. And that's going to come as we onboard agents onto best agent and conveyancing firms. It's coming, it's happening. There's stuff happening on that. And if you want to keep abreast of what's happening on that, you should just join my newsletter, mhwc.co.uk/newsletter. I'll put that on the screen for a second. I think it's blurred as well, but there we are. That's my newsletter if you want to keep abreast of the public house price index news when it comes out. David says, I feel like Labour could cause financial instability and negative equity. We could get a crash. Yep, we could. We could. Thomas says, since Christmas, I've only viewed 5. We've only viewed 5. But the trouble is, most of the houses are cash buyers only. We can't buy the over 55s properties as we aren't old enough. Oh, I see. Oh, they're retirement properties. So you're not allowed to buy those. Okay. And cash buyers only, that means that they've got problems with them that they wouldn't get a mortgage, right? So you're buying with a mortgage, is that right? That is a strange position. John Snow says, a developer has just gone pop in my area and left the site with nothing finished. Whereabouts in the country is that, John? Just roughly. Be good to know. Kim Thomas says, did you notice they've reduced their target of 1.5 million homes from 1.5 to 1.3 million today in the statement? I did notice that. I wondered if anyone else would pick it up. And H says, they've literally lied about every manifesto pledge. It's easy to think everything that comes out of their mouths is a lie until proven otherwise. I couldn't agree more. All of these announcements about their plans, you can't eat intentions. You can't live off intentions and undelivered stuff. It doesn't help anyone that's suffering now. The only thing they should be saying is what we've delivered, when they delivered it. We've delivered this, we've delivered that. That's done. That's the only thing they should talk about. Benny Boom says GDP is bullshit anyway. It's all velocity of money. It's not a good metric to look at, especially on its own. We're getting to the point where they say war is good for the economy. Need misallocation. Yep. Slimane on YouTube. Question, first time buyer here. Is it better to stretch myself and take advantage of lower stamp duty or buy what I can comfortably afford? I know people who bought 8 years ago and regret not buying something bigger. Why do they regret not buying something bigger? And 8 years ago is a very, very different time. You're talking 2017. and the market went up sharply over the next 5 years after that. Is that why they regret it? The market's not going to do that again in the next 5 years, I assure you. So it's too late to buy the lower stamp duty. You've missed it. If you haven't bought now, you need to complete by Monday. So unless you're completing and buying something by Monday, it's too late. Stamp duty goes up on Tuesday next week. And generally speaking, the only time when it's less risky to stretch yourself financially to buy a house is when house prices are positively and consistently rising strongly. And I don't mean spiking. I just mean a really good, stable, sustainable rate of growth. Then it's worth, then occasionally the risk of stretching yourself is lower because quite quickly the house prices are growing and your exposure is reduced. But right now, it'd be a big mistake to stretch yourself, in my view. Right, guys, that's just over an hour. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And just remember, if you're new here, please go check out my YouTube channel for my go to the homepage video on my channel homepage, which is a very short 2-minute video, and that points you at 10 golden rules for buying, 10 golden rules for selling. If you're new and you want to get the shortest snapshot of all of my advice, if you're buying or selling, go and check out those videos, or just look them up. Charlie's 10 golden rules for home sellers, Charlie's 10 golden rules for home buyers, for buying. If you're new and you haven't seen them and you don't know all of the advice that I give, that's the easiest way to get on board with my advice for either one of those. And I'm here to help anyone move. And make sure you've got a mortgage in place before you go offering or viewing. Puts you in a stronger position. And make sure you've got your conveyancing in place before you sell. Again, both of my videos will elaborate on those reasons. Other than that, there's so much going on we could talk about, but I need to get some sleep sometimes. Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.